I've had 3 children without anesthesia, but I can't quit smoking.
I've run marathons, but I can't stop vaping.
Beating nicotine isn't a matter of willpower, it's a medical condition. The deck is stacked against you with products designed to keep you coming back for more. Here's the good news. The RWJ Barnabas Health Nicotine and Tobacco Recovery Program can help you quit for good. Visit rwjbh.org/nicotine recovery. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. Funded by the New Jersey Department of Health.
I'll say this for him, he's consistent.
Well, he's been so consistent all year.
Not the taste, consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Consistency!
Thanks, losers.
And welcome back. Another week of Fantasy Football Consistency Show. I'm your host, Bob Lung. Always great to be here. We're getting ready for the holidays. We're excited. It's that time of year, but there's a lot more important things than Christmas coming up, folks. That is called Championship Week. And if you're in one, you know what I'm talking about. And I know who else is in one other than me. That's my co-host, as always, Ron Rigney. Ron, how's it going down there?
Doing good. You know, Christmas coming up, but we want championships in those stockings. We don't want anything but those. So we're going for those. You know, I know you're in a few yourself.
Right.
You know, I got one in one of my home leagues. I lost a heartbreaker. Shout out to our guy Mike Woolert from 4 for 4 Fantasy, who beat me in the Kings Classic Blanda Snake by less than a point. Yes, I'm looking at you, Alvin Kamara. Thanks a lot for that.
Thanks for nothing.
Good luck to him. Good luck to him in the championship, and we'll try to at least see if we can eke out a bronze medal this time. We'll see if we can get those. Yeah.
No, like you said, I actually so far, and let's see if we can keep the string going. In the Kings Classic Jim Brown Auction League, I got in as a 6th seed out of, there's only 6 teams made the playoffs. I made the 6th seed. And first round, I played Mike Clay of ESPN. I was an underdog by, I think the projected was 20 points. And Mike scored 157 points or 150 points, and I beat him by 17. Last week, I was an underdog to Corey Parsons by, I think, about 12, and I beat Corey by 14. This week, I play in the finals, who eked out a victory against our boy Colby Conway, which was very close as well, a couple points at most. And now I have Patrick Doherty from RotoWire. Is it RotoWire or RotoWorld? I forget. I think it's RotoWorld. Yes, RotoWorld, because he's NBC. Yes. RotoWorld. So Patrick and I are going to duke it out, and guess what? I'm the underdog again by 8. So we'll see if I can pull a Oakland Raiders here and be the long distant wild card who goes all the way and wins the Super Bowl. So we'll see if we can pull it off. So he's got a good team. He's got some good matchups for his team. I have a good team, but I don't have the matchups this week. Last week I had some good matchups that were very helpful. This week I got some tough ones. So we'll see. I've pulled off a couple of miracles. I'm going to see if I can do 3 in a row, and hopefully I'll get my first Kings Classic title. We'll see. And like you said, I'm in some other finals, home leagues, other expert leagues, and so we'll see how that all plays out. But you folks out there listening, I know you are, because you're in the championship and you want to know, hey, Bob, hey, Ron, who's consistent guys out there, who we going to count on, who is hot, who might be some good matchups this week, and we'll talk our way through getting you to the ship and getting that ship and putting it up on your mantle. Beside your, you'll have some nice holly and some Christmas stuff, and then beside it will be a trophy.
You can put it up there next to the elf on the shelf.
That's right, elf on the shelf, and have elf on the shelf stand in the trophy thing. It'll be very nice. So anyway, all right, well, let's get it started here. As always, of course, we are part of the Full-Time Fantasy Football Network, or Fantasy Podcast Network, I should say, and don't forget to listen to all the great podcasts on there, especially our 2 favorite, and that is, of course, Consistently Cashing over the weekends with Ron and Colby, and the Prop It Like It's Hot prop bet consistency. I won another $45 last week. Thrive Fantasy. I think I was 14th out of 140. We put up some good numbers last week. I think I was 14th, so I think I was 8 out of 10. So
awesome.
Yeah, missed 2, and so it was a good week. We nailed a bunch of good ones there.
And I don't know. I didn't have a chance to catch up with Colby since the weekend, but I know I was able to cash both of my consistently cashed lineups. And actually,
Excellent.
I think if you would have played him in a GPP, you might have won a little cash there as well. So
nice. So you had a big week.
Pulled that off. Yeah, we did real well last week. And I know Colby had a lot of the same players as me, so I'm gonna say he probably cashed at least one, if not both of his as well.
Right. So yeah, it's been a good year for both of those, and we're gonna keep that going next year, and we'll try to have some time at the end. I want to talk about some cool things we're going to focus on, because this will probably be our last show of the year since this is championship week, and then we'll get back to it after the holidays and kind of update everybody what's going on. So, all right, so let's take a look at the quarterback position. Last week, no surprise, Lamar Jackson puts up big numbers, which is pretty much what happens every week anymore. Year to date, he's first place, 422 fantasy points. The second highest is Deshaun Watson at 360. So big distance there between the two, 93% consistency. I mean, we all know Lamar is definitely that must start, but Jameis Winston, 38.3 points last week. And remember, he had like a bruised thumb. Remember, they were like, we're not even sure he's going to play. He's gripping the ball okay, blah, blah, blah. 38.3 points. So far this year, 4th in total points, 64% consistency, which isn't great. And this is what a lot of people have been talking about quarterbacks this year. And, obviously many of the teams in most leagues are looking to next year, talking about where are we going to draft quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Watson, those kind of guys. And, as much as we love Winston, he's still only 64% consistent, which is actually as consistent as Jared Goff, who's 16th. So, yeah, he's putting up more points, but his consistency is still a little troubling. So be interesting to see where Winston goes next year based on the high total points numbers that he has done. So what are your thoughts on Winston next year? We assume Bruce Arians sticks around. Are you going to just kind of draft Winston like you would this past year? Kind of I'll take him as my one if I need to, but that would have to be 8th or 9th round kind of thing.
Well, I want to see. I'm hoping that I don't have to make that decision early on in drafts. I want to see just kind of where he normalizes out and where he's going as far as ADP. But I mean, it's hard to argue with the stats that he puts up. And we talked a little bit about it last week. And despite him turning the ball over so much, I mean, he still has his 24 picks to 30 touchdowns. But he has 4,573 yards. He's got weapons around him. He's averaging, or he's got 280 fantasy points. So I'm not opposed to drafting him because like I said, I like the tight ends they have. Mike Evans will be back healthy next year. Chris Godwin has kind of asserted himself. So I'd love to see them get a running back in there that's consistent, that's not Peyton Barber, that's not Ronald Jones, because Ronald Jones kind of showed out there for a little bit in the middle of the season. Thought he might take that job, and it's definitely been anything but that. But I don't think I have a problem with him being my one as long as he can outpace the interceptions with the touchdowns like he's been able to do. But when he puts up those games where he's throwing 2 touchdowns and 4 picks or 1 touchdown and 5 picks, that's the ones that really kill you. But luckily, those have kind of been the outliers. When you look at the interception total, he's got 3, 8, 10, 14 of those come in about 3 games. So
right.
I mean, if you can survive those 3, everything else looks pretty good.
Right. And that's an interesting thing. That's not something we have tracked in the past, the consistency of interceptions. But let's be honest, if a lot of them occurred in just 3 games, maybe that's why he's not hurting your fantasy teams as much as you think, because he's just had 3 atrocious games, but the other ones he only had 1 interception or maybe 2 at the most. But so interestingly enough, I've had a question today that said, would you start Matt Ryan or Winston this week? Now, we know Winston's playing at home against Houston. Great matchup, but no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. we're basically down to Brashard Perriman, maybe O.J. Howard gets some touches or targets for once, and the running backs, basically. I don't even know who their second receiver is now. There was a guy named Scott Miller, but he got hurt. And then you got Matt Ryan at home against Jacksonville. I would probably lean Ryan just because I feel a little bit better about Ryan's consistency and, and Jacksonville's defense we know is just as horrible as Houston's is. Do you feel comfortable with Winston in a, versus like a Matt Ryan or a Ryan Tannehill or a Josh Allen or even a Drew Brees?
I think so, because there's been a couple of times he's been up against some tougher defenses, and he's been solid. One of the 3 interception games was against San Francisco, but that was real early on.
Right.
But even when you look at some of these defenses he's gone against, he threw for 300 against Tennessee, who's been stout. Seattle's been solid. He went for 335 and 2 scores, and interestingly enough, did not turn the ball over there. So I think I'm okay starting him in this spot.
Not to interrupt, but here's my concern. He did that when he had Evans and Godwin. Mm-hmm. Those two missing is what concerns me. It's not that he can't throw the ball. And when he has the weapons, he certainly can put up the points. My concern is his best weapon right now is Brashard Perriman. Is that going to be enough to make you feel comfortable that he can still put up 325 and 2 touchdowns against Houston with marginal receivers, running backs, and tight end that they don't like to use? That's my concern.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing. Because I hadn't heard any. I don't own Chris Godwin anywhere, so I hadn't. I heard his status was up in the air, but I didn't know he was out. So that does skew it a little bit, but I don't know. I still wouldn't be all that uncomfortable with going with him. I think he could find a way to put up some solid numbers.
Right. Yeah, I still told the person to do Ryan just because of that, because I felt a little more comfortable.
It's close, I can agree with.
Yeah.
I can see the argument going either way.
Right. There was a thought process, and then I was like, I'm probably going to go Ryan. I don't have those choices, but this was for, somebody who reached out to me, and I was like, I think I'd go Ryan. As much as, Winston's been red hot, I get it, but man, I just don't know if he throws a ton of dump off passes and, versus normally where he stretched the field with a Godwin or Evans or Perriman last week. If Houston's double teaming Perriman because that's their only deep threat, well, he's going to throw a ton underneath. He might complete 30 passes for 260 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that's not going to get it done in championship week,
Well, Houston's third worst against the quarterback as far as allowing fantasy points too, so that gives me a little bit more.
Yeah, like you said, it's close enough.
But
and like you said, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to go," I'm dead set on Winston. Like, yeah, I can't argue with you, But when it's one or the other, that's what I went with. So, all right, let's move into the running back position. It was so weird to watch Kenyon Drake just go off. More particularly because I was watching the Cleveland Browns game, which is where he went off. And I kept sitting there going, I don't even have Kenyon Drake. I have Kenyon Drake, and I had him in only 1 or 2 leagues. Mm-hmm. The one, interestingly enough, and this is probably the best league to have him in, is I have him in a dynasty league. And I drafted him just because, I probably drafted him in the 15th round. It was a first-year draft, and nobody was picking Drake. And it was like round 15 or 16. And I'm like, well, he should start for Miami. He didn't. But he should. And, like you said, so I didn't make if I'd have been in the semifinals, obviously I would have been playing him, but I didn't make the semifinals in that league. I got knocked out of the playoffs in the first round because Kenny Drake wasn't doing anything because, well, Edmonds and Johnson were still playing. What do you think is going to happen with Drake? Do you think the Cardinals are going to keep him because they don't have enough faith in DJ or Edmonds? Or do you think they let him walk and he goes somewhere and can finally be the main back and be productive like we've seen him do multiple times when he's been the main back? My thought would be Kenyon Drake should go to Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. I think
I think if it doesn't work out in Arizona, he's going to find a landing spot and he's going to be valuable. I don't know what David Johnson's contract situation is. But the only scenario I can see there maybe is if they decide, it's kind of best to move on from him and maybe they cut him or release him somehow or trade him somewhere for something, and he ends up in a better scenario, and that kind of leaves, and they decide that they want to run with Drake. I don't think that's a bad scenario. I think that's a fine scenario for them because he's shown out when he's been able to get the touches. At 22 carries last week for $137, four scores. I mean, like you said, you saw it. So I mean, he's had a couple games where he's went off when he's got the ball. And I could see him being a nice little back in that offense. But I think it all depends upon if they hang on. I don't think he sticks around if they decide to hang on to David Johnson. Right.
Because if I'm Kenyon Drake, I want to be a starter somewhere. I've proven that I can do it. It's just, I just have to have the right coach. So whether it's Tampa Bay and Bruce Arians using him, or he stays in Arizona and they release David Johnson and cut bait and throw away the money. A lot of it's going to depend. I don't see them get rid of DJ because if he's healthy, well, you got to give him another shot. The question is can he stay healthy? And they already have Edmonds. I'm sure that he's under a rookie contract. So, now, again, they may do like they did with Malcolm Brown and the Rams, where somebody tries to steal him, they'll match the offer and keep him. But that doesn't mean Drake gets to be a starter, though, and that's the sad part. So. All right, so we move on. Some big names, obviously, near the top that we expect. McCaffrey, Elliott, Barkley, Chris Carson, Nick Chubb. Then some other surprises. Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard got up there. Joe Mixon had another nice week. Adrian Peterson, of course, Mike Boone filled in for when our boy Dalvin Cook went down. Aaron Jones had another good week. Aaron Jones is one of those ones that really, it'd be interesting to see where he goes next year, because I already saw a couple, way too early first round picks, and they had and these guys have Aaron Jones in the first round. Yeah, he's fourth in total points. I get that, but he's 64% consistent. That doesn't get it done as a first-round pick. There's no way I'm picking Aaron Jones in the first round with that kind of consistency. Now, Jamal Williams goes away, it's one thing. But, I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on Aaron Jones? Going into this week, you've got Green Bay playing Minnesota on Monday night. You have to put him in, right? I mean, he's fourth in total points.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of that, when you look at, he's got 17 total touchdowns too, so that's a big part of it. And he's kind of feast or famine as far as those touchdowns. He's got a 4-touchdown game, he's got a 3-touchdown game, and then he had 2 last week. So that's a big factor in it. When you look at some of these games where he's not, like for example, week 3 against Denver, he had 2 scores, he had 4 scores that week because he had 2 on the ground and 2 in the air, but he only had 19 yards rushing. The next week he had a touchdown and 21 yards. So I mean, yardage-wise, he's been very, very inconsistent. It's been those touchdowns that have been propping him up. But I will say, we talked about him a few weeks ago. The one thing that does stick out to me that is a little bit shocking is, in PPR, he does have 45 catches for 425 yards, too. So that's ultra helpful. Is it helpful enough for me to draft him in the first round? I don't think I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on him in round 1.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my thought is, and where I've seen him go is around, I think, the 10th pick, so late first round. Well, if I'm late first round, that's where I'm usually looking at my Julio Jones or my Mike Thomas or Hopkins or Devontae Adams or somebody like that I can, get pure consistency out of and not, sweat it. But, that's also a good place. You take an Aaron Jones and maybe come back and take, a Chris Carson in round 2 or a Derrick Henry in round 2 to match with it. Now it's a different story. So it'll be interesting to see, when we start getting into some serious ADPs, how this all fleshes out, because there's a lot of good running backs that, could easily be worth first round picks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 running backs right now that have a 79% or higher consistency rating. So if you draft those 9 in the first round alone, now I'm not saying you're going to. They have the consistency that has earned it, but one of them is James White. One of them is Kareem Hunt, which Yeah, he's 6 for 6, but he's up there. You got Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette. Would you draft Leonard Fournette in the first round next year?
Based on this year, yeah, I think I'd be a little more comfortable with that than
I would rather draft Fournette at the end, near the end of the first round, than I would Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of the consistency, and they're like you said, he's got more total points. I get that, but the consistency of 93% versus 64%. I mean, that's 4 extra games.
And when you look at those 10 guys too that are above, or 11 guys or whatever it is that are above 79%, another thing that sticks out is they've all been pretty healthy. I mean, when you look at the games they've played too, there's only Alvin Kamara and James White have played less than 14 games. Of course, I'm not counting Kareem Hunt because he only played 6 so far.
Right.
But that's been a big key too, as far as them being consistent as well. They've been able to stay on the field.
Right. Yeah. And Aaron Jones and Mark Ingram, who are both 64%, both have played 14 games. But that's one of the few. The only other one that's played 14 is somebody like Joe Mixon, who's 57%, who's been super red hot though the last 6 weeks, but has kind of crept up to 57%. It'll be interesting again to see where he goes. But all right, so anybody else you're looking at that, hey, make sure you get him in this week? Is Miles Sanders another automatic starter this week for Philadelphia? They're playing against the Jets at New York. I think that's right. Yeah.
Let me see here.
Yeah, at the Jets. So, I don't think Jordan Howard's back yet. So we run with him again. I mean, interestingly enough, he did a lot of that damage in the second half last week.
Right. Are you sure that's who they got this week?
Maybe I lined it up wrong.
Let me see here.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It's Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas at
Jets
home.
Playing the Steelers. I think you have to, just because of the opportunities he's going to get. I mean, that's another thing. Like for example, Rashard Perriman last week. He was an automatic plug and play just because he's going to get reps. He's going to get opportunities. So and plus too, I think Miles Sanders has kind of earned the right to be in your lineup with the way he's played the last recently as well.
Right. All right, let's move on. Wide receivers. The one, the only, Mr. Michael Thomas, right up there, 3rd in total points this week. It's interesting this year how every position, the number one guy is way ahead of second place. I mean, if you break down each one, let's look at each one. So Lamar Jackson is 62 points ahead of second place. Christian McCaffrey is 119 points ahead of second place. Michael Thomas is 61, and Kelsey is not as much. He's the lowest at only 22 ahead. But, man, I don't know if I've ever seen a year where each one of these positions just has a huge gap, between first and second, and it drops off like that.
No, it seems like we've had it the last couple of years. I think it seems like wide receiver's been like that with DeAndre Hopkins. He's been pretty far ahead. I don't know if it was to this extent, but he seems like the one that kind of stands out that had a pretty
and I remember
big lead.
When DJ a couple of years ago had over 400 points, he was way ahead of everybody as well. So, but yeah, Michael Thomas, the only perfect wide receiver, 100%, first in total points. DeAndre Hopkins. Do you remember back in week 6 when DeAndre Hopkins was 2 for 4, and we were concerned?
Oh, I remember us having to scroll much further down to find his name as opposed to being right there at the top at number 2. So
he was 2 for 4. Yeah. And we were like, oh, he's only 50% consistent, but we expect him to get back up there. Well, there he is. Rips off 12 straight, 12 of 14, 86%, just where he belongs. And why would we ever doubt him, right? Now, Devontae Adams, who was also down there, did not get back up there due to injuries. He's at 64%. Do you draft Devontae Adams next year in the first round?
It's got to be late in the first round if I do. Kind of like you talked about before, in that range where you're at the end with the Julio Joneses of the world. But I'm okay with it because, I mean, it's hard to fault a guy, for injuries,
right.
I guess. And I think that's kind of what you can blame it on. But it would be iffy. It would definitely be determined by what other receivers are there at the end of that first round. Like, if I got a chance to get, I don't know, a guy like, Julio, I would definitely take Julio Jones above him.
So basically, I'm thinking Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins. We already know Thomas is probably going to be the number one receiver.
Yeah.
He'll probably go middle of the first round, just like Hopkins has in the past. So we figure Hopkins goes first round, Julio goes first round. I would not be surprised to see Chris Godwin go in the first round. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I'm picking him in first round, but I wouldn't be surprised. Now, Julian Edelman will be the one that will go at the end of the second round or third round because people will just have no faith that he can do it again. But guess where we'll be drafting him? We'll have him on every team, won't we? Mm-hmm. Keenan Allen's not up there anymore. Tyreek didn't put it together. He definitely won't be, he'll be a second round. I would be surprised if Devontae Adams is a mid-second round.
Well, and just glancing at stuff here, too, with some of the guys that are a little bit further down, it looks like just early on there might be some excellent value in that mid to late second round, maybe even early third round for some of these receivers that have slipped a little bit in consistency.
Right, because, the OBJ is going to be late second round because people are going to be pissed off about him. Mike Evans is going to be in there late second round, maybe third. Adam Thielen. I see a lot of the newer, younger guys being up there. Like A.J. Brown, DJ Chark, Mari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton. Heck, maybe even, John Brown, DJ Moore. They're right up there consistency-wise. So I think the receivers are going to be a lot easier to draft next year, especially when you can use the consistency model to identify those guys that you should draft a little bit higher because they're more consistent, where other people may not like them because they may not have the total points value, and vice versa. Where do you think Devontae Parker is going to go next year? That's going to be interesting.
It is. Well, it's yeah.
Allen Robinson.
Didn't I read he signed an extension?
Oh, did he? I haven't read that.
I could have swore I saw that somewhere.
If they're smart, they would have signed him. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he's able to put up these kind of numbers with nobody else there and with the guys thrown to him, they're thrown to him. He could be right there in that late second, early third round conversation.
Especially if this Preston Williams kid comes back, who looked pretty good when they were on the field together. And if the bearded wonder is still there, we assume he will be. But again, they might go get a Tua or some quarterback and may screw it all up. So we'll have to see. DJ Moore is up there consistency wise. He'll probably be drafted. So I think you'll probably see probably a little bit of a shift from the older regime being drafted a little bit later than, in the maybe second or late second, early third rounds, and see some of these younger guys go a little bit higher. Then we just have to decide whether or not we feel that they can continue that consistency.
Devontae Parker signed a 4-year extension, so he's going to be in Miami for a little bit longer.
That's good.
So,
that's good.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys that are way down, in this list that we'll probably have back up there. Like I said, you got to remember, Juju Smith-Schuster had a terrible year. Wonder where he'll go. T.Y. Hilton had a down year, can't stay healthy. Wonder where he'll go. So there are a lot of big names that could be going third, fourth rounds that may surprise people. And, and we have to kind of look at and say, can we trust the consistency? Can we trust the health history? That's really the key for any of these guys, because that's what killed, now Juju's was not only his own health history, but of course Big Ben's. So we'll see if Big Ben's going to come back and play one more year and tough it out, or if he's going to pack it up and they'll go with Duck Dodgers. So, all right, so let's move into the last position, and it's been the ugliest, of course, of all of them. Pretty much seems like that way every year, doesn't it? The tight end position, Travis Kelce. If you drafted him in the third round or wherever he was being drafted at, congratulations. It worked out. A lot of the teams I see that were in the playoffs had Kelce there with them. And it's certainly worth looking at next year. I mean, I still don't know if I can pull the trigger on a third-round tight end, but, man, it's hard to argue with 100% consistency. Points-wise, he's, 22 points ahead of Ertz, who really Ertz has come on with a couple of big games here at the end of the year, but to kind of get up that total, because he certainly wasn't that close a few weeks ago. But then, Kittle now has turned it on the last few weeks. He's up to 75% consistency. He's fourth in total points. Ertz is 71. So the big three, they kind of paid off basically because at least you got consistency and you got solid output from them. I still don't know if Ertz and Kittle were worth a third round, but if they can fall to the fifth round, I certainly might be drafting them next year and might not wait, might even go fourth round, just so I know I have somebody I can trust, because as we saw this year, there aren't many we can trust anymore, are there?
No, and there's a reason that I always call that the catcher position of fantasy football and vice versa, because it's so top heavy and then it just drops way off. I'm okay with Kelsey. The one championship I'm in, it's no coincidence that I have Lamar Jackson and Travis Kelsey carrying my offense. But the one thing with Kittle, he always misses a couple games. He's missed a couple games this year for injuries. We talked about Evan Engram. We liked him going in, and when he's been in the game, he's been solid. But he's also only played in 8 games. Austin Hooper's missed a few, so that seems to be a big thing with this position, is just durability. But when you look at guys like Kelsey, Ertz, and Waller, you mentioned Ertz before. I have him in a couple places, and he started out ultra slow. He was kind of that DeAndre Hopkins that we were worried about, being pretty far down on this list, and he's ended up being okay, but he's not justified, where you were having to take him in drafts. Darren Waller's been I'd say the best value that we have here. I mean, when you look at what he's done, he's kind of been out of necessity. He's third in total points. He's 71% consistent.
Right. And to be honest with you, he'll certainly be one of my favorites going into next year, because I feel like Darren Waller will be in that fifth round, kind of like Ingram was this past year. And to be honest with you, I love Evan Ingram. I just can't count on him. If you can give me Evan Ingram and give me at least, even a 14-game season, you're going to get some great numbers out of him. But, damn, this guy can't stay healthy. How far that'll make him fall, I don't know. I'm also thinking about, as I look at the 2020, about possibly doing a fifth round, sixth round double tight end. So maybe do like Waller and Ingram, or Waller and Hooper, or Waller and Henry, or somebody like that. Maybe even a Mark Andrews in there, so that I've got 2 that I can count on. I can flex one if I have to. But at least I've got now 2, because let's be honest, they're very valuable. If you can have 2, there's a couple leagues that, like that Dynasty League I'm in. I have Waller and I have Ingram. And, when they were both playing, man, it was just fantastic, because they were both putting up great numbers. That means that one team in the league didn't have any good tight ends, because I had 2 of them. In fact, one of the other teams who's in the finals has Kelsey and Ertz. So, and he's rolling with that.
Well, I was going to say too. One thing I've really learned this year that I'd never really done in the past, and I'm going to stick with it, is don't be afraid to flex out a second tight end either. If you really like the matchup, that's worked out for me in consistently cashing a few weeks. Yeah, I've done it a couple times in Kings Classic. I've done it a couple times in the IDP league that I'm in the championship in. So, if you got a guy like Kelsey in there and OJ Howard's got a great matchup, or, pretty much any tight end with a pulse is going against the Arizona Cardinals, you want to get him in there, the Tyler Higbees of the world. It's worked out for me a couple times. I'm going to stick with it going into next year and beyond, I think.
Well, and if you can get 2 consistent tight ends, because basically what do you really want out of your flex player? You want 10 to 15 points. That's it. If you can get 10 to 15 points out of your flex player every week, you would be giddy, right?
Absolutely.
So if you've got 2 tight ends and you can flex one of those tight ends and get that 10 to 12 points a week, I mean, that's hard to beat. Plus, like you said, then you're also keeping one of the good tight ends away from the rest of the league. And I think that's just as important.
A lot of people won't do that either. They don't want to put a tight end in the flex spot. They're kind of afraid to do it, and I think I was kind of like that before. So you might as well go with the more sure matchup that you've got with that tight end than grabbing some running back off the scrap heap that might be a PPR back that's going to get you maybe 5 or 6 points instead of getting that 10 or 12 that tight end could get if they make it in the end zone.
Well, and it kind of goes back to your baseball analogy. I remember playing in rotisserie leagues where it had 2 catchers, and I used to try to get 2 really good catchers because my thought was, 1, they're hard to come by, and 2, if you got 2 really good ones, that means one of the other teams is really hurting because usually if you had 1, you were pretty happy, but if you could get 2 studs, even if 1 was an early draft pick and 1 was just a good find in the late rounds, that was golden. I mean, you could almost do the same scenario here with tight ends next year, and basically one of these top 10, go with one of these guys that are proven, because even Hunter Henry falls into that. He's kind of had a bad year with injuries and but he's still 70% consistent in the 10 games he's played, so you can count on him for sure. I don't know why Jared Cook all of a sudden woke up after Drew Brees came back, because he didn't do shit with Drew Brees when he was there early in the season. But all of a sudden, Jared Cook is a favorite of his, and maybe will be. Ian Thomas will, definitely going to be high on my list next year. So I think it's one of those where we just have to kind of go forward with that and look at that scenario, whether it's dynasty or whether it's redraft, and really just take a look at what you can do at the tight end position. But it may be worth grabbing 2 in rounds, 6, 7, 7, 8, something like that. Once you've loaded up on your, running backs, wide receivers, maybe even a quarterback in there, and grab 2 of them before, instead of trying to take a chance on a late guy. Because, you might get a Mark Andrews, you might get a Darren Waller, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got about 8 minutes left. So what I wanted to kind of talk about at the end here, like I said, this will be our last show for the year. Of course, on behalf of Ron, I just want to thank everybody for listening. Lots of new listeners this year, a lot of new subscribers. To everybody out there, thank you for buying the guide. Another big year, another record year for the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. I can't thank everybody enough. Everybody who's just been a part of promoting it, reading it, supporting it. I've got a lot of really nice emails this week. People were in the finals, thanking me for, and all of us, Ron, you and Colby as well, for your contributions, for, being a part of, the consistency and using consistency for the first time and making the playoffs, making the finals, and hopefully we'll win some finals too. So just want to say, thank you for that. As we head into next year, I'm going to let everybody kind of know some secrets. Ron knows these, but, I think he knows most of them. So we are going to have a new website. I'm going to build a new one in the off season with some help from some friends. Hopefully to make it a little bit smoother, a little bit more up to date, a little bit easier to use, and try to make some improvements. If you got any recommendations, of course you can always hit us up on Twitter or Bob at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Couple things we're also looking to do. One is we're looking to create a IDP consistency report for you people that play in the IDP leagues. And I think you play in a couple, don't you, Ron?
Absolutely. That's how I kind of got started. I did it the opposite way. I played IDP for 20 years, and then I got started in team defense a little bit later. So I'm opposite of everybody else. Right. So we're gonna build a very similar to the consistency report you already see on the website. That has quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. We're going to do it with IDP players and track the consistency for the last 3 years. We'll add a little bit to the guide with it. Maybe, Ron, if you want to write it up since you've played in this scenario, put together some information. We won't be doing profiles in that yet, but we'll see how successful and welcomed it is into the industry. And who knows, maybe we'll just do a consistency guide, and maybe we'll do a IDP supplement where it's only maybe just, we won't get into a lot of detail, but we'll at least do player profiles and something like that. So we're hoping to expand that into that. So that's definitely one of our big news for next year. We are also right now working on fantasy baseball consistency. And Ron, I know this is a big one for you. I know you're excited about this. This will obviously apply to guys that play in the head-to-head leagues, where you accumulate weekly stats and compete against players in your league in a head-to-head battle versus a full rotisserie. So we've already been working on that. We've got the
the numbers are put together, and we know kind of who is the most consistent, that kind of stuff, but we're trying to build it into the same model as we use for football so that you can sort and, pick the positions and see the total points, and, we'll do it by weeks. So kind of like football, you have week 1, week 2, week 3. We'll do, 26 weeks, 24 weeks in the baseball season, and we'll have the last 3 years of stats for the players, and so that's something we're working on as well. So that's kind of the big news is those coming up. All that should be happening in January and February. Baseball will probably come out pretty soon. We might even be writing some articles after the first of the year just talking about consistency in baseball, the importance of it in fantasy baseball, especially head-to-head. So, Ron, your thoughts on the upcoming stuff? I know you kind of knew about these things, but what are your thoughts? And, what do you see excitement from the folks?
Absolutely, man. I mean, anytime you can add something into what we already do and build on that audience that is already, building just on the consistency model. I love the fact that we're going to be doing some IDP. Like I said, that's something that I've done for, close to 20 years now. Love IDP, love the stats, love the positions. It's a great way to play if you're really, really into it. And then the baseball stuff as well. I've been playing baseball as much as I've been playing football, nearly 20 years as well. So it'd be interesting to see how the consistency translates over to the baseball world. But it's definitely, like you said, in a head-to-head matchup, it's definitely going to be a go-to tool for sure.
Right. So like I said, we're really excited about that kind of stuff coming forward, and obviously the long-term goal is that we have pretty much every sport. We'll do NBA, we'll do maybe even hockey, because anytime you're playing head-to-head, like Ron said, and we can accumulate the stats, we can create the reports, get that out there, get the writers. So if you're interested in any of those sports and you want to be a writer, hey, hit us up again. We're recruiting some new folks for that to help put those things together, and and hopefully we'll someday have a fantasy baseball consistency, fantasy football consistency guide, maybe even a fantasy NBA guide. And the idea is to share this knowledge and this information with all sports, because it is important, because when you play head to head, you want the consistent players. You don't want the ups and downs that can hurt you, and we all know that that's important. So we're pretty excited about that stuff. There's a lot of work to start. Everybody thinks that the season ends when we end here in a couple of weeks, but I just get started putting this new stuff together, and with all the new things that's going to be coming out, I'll probably be busier in January, February, March than I was in October, November, December. So, but Ron, why don't you tell everybody? I know you're doing some baseball stuff. The boys from the Nasty Cats and company, so let everybody know what you've been up to or what you'll be doing here as we go into the off season.
Yeah, so we're still rolling out Fantrax Dynasty Baseball. That's year round, and we've taken a break from doing our minor league system profiles, and we did a first year player draft. Myself, Mr. Van Lee, Mr. Nathan Dawkin, our guy Eric Cross from Fantrax, and we invited Shelly Verstrate, who's so if you know anything about Dynasty Baseball, Shelly V is all over Dynasty Baseball. She knows her stuff. I play in a league with her, and she is relentless. She knows her prospects. She's an excellent player, excellent writer, excellent podcaster. So we did a little first-year player draft last night. We did 50 of the top guys that are eligible to play this year in the minors. We did J2 signings, a couple international signings. So look for that coming out. Actually, the first part of that dropped today, and for our Patreon people, they have first dibs on the second, the 21 through 50 as far as those picks. So check that out. That'll be available to everybody, I think, coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to take a couple-week break for the holiday, and then the Nasty Cast is also going to make its triumphant return in the middle of January at some point. We'll be throwing some off-season stuff there. We'll be talking about free agency, the guys that could still move, the guys that will move, sleepers, everything. You name it, we'll be back, but we'll be back full strength with both of them here in about a month.
All right, so we got a minute and a half. The Kluber for DeShields, and I don't even remember the guy who's the relief pitcher.
Emmanuel Clase.
Did we get screwed?
No, I mean it's tough to say, because it makes me think that other teams weren't really liking what they saw with Kluber, and I kind of look at that, and it just all depends upon how Emmanuel Clase develops. I think Cleveland must have saw something in him, but I guess I'm thinking that the offers just weren't there like they thought they would be. And I think they were afraid to put him out there in the regular season and damage his trade value even further if he came
right.
out.
No, and I
Yeah.
realize we're trading away damaged goods. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't get much out of him, and if I know DeShields isn't much other than a good defensive outfielder and speed, but
he can steal some bases. It's just you got to get on base to steal bases, and he's had a little bit of an issue with that. So yeah, you can't.
All right, well, we'll see. Hopefully they make some more moves. They've been pretty quiet, so. All right, as always, you can find me at Bob_Lung on Twitter. Of course, email me at bob@bigguyfantasysports.com. On behalf of Ron, I just want to tell everybody happy holidays. Have a happy new year. We will be talking to you guys after the first of the year. Thanks again for listening. Take care. God bless.
Hey, how many people are you expecting?
Relax, it's an open invite.
I think you're a few seats short.
Yeah, like 14 seats.
You should enter your eligible New York Lottery draw game tickets with Collect and Win. You could win a $5,000 gift card to use at the Home Depot and buy a bigger table to host.
Hopefully they also sell chairs.
The Home Depot is not a sponsor of this promotion. You must be 18 years or older to purchase a lottery ticket. You must be 21 or older to purchase a quick draw ticket where alcoholic beverages are served. Please play responsibly. Entered by 1/7/20.
It's hosting season, which means it's too many people in the house season.
Can I sit on this? Nope.
Casserole burning in the oven season.
Anyone smell that? My yams!
And Aunt Meg giving advice season.
You should enter eligible New York Lottery draw game tickets with Collect and Win. You could win a $5,000 gift card to use at the Home Depot to make hosting a little easier.
Wow, Aunt Meg, that's actually great advice.
The Home Depot is not a sponsor of this promotion. You must be 18 years or older to purchase a lottery ticket. You must be 21 or older to purchase a quick draw ticket where alcoholic beverages are served. Please play responsibly. Entered by 1/7/20.